Hello, everybody. Today we are having a wonderful guest, one of the coaches on the growthyears.com platform, Al. And I'm very happy to introduce him. Al is a transformational coach who believes that every change should start with you. Al, maybe a few words about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Al Vazquez, and I am a transformational executive leadership coach. I live in Ithaca, New York, in the Finger Lakes and beautiful Finger Lakes region. I'm also, a 20-year technology professional. Spent most of my time in middle and upper management. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a cancer survivor.
So technology industry is a very interesting industry, right? Very quickly evolving industry. What has triggered you to change from being a technology executive to a coach?
Well, I got into technology because it was a fast-moving industry and offered a lot of opportunities for growth and success. But my passion has always been spreading kindness and compassion. And when I got into technology very early on, I actually tried my hardest to tell myself stories about every job I was in and how it was going to help make the world a better place. At one point, I was making software for fast food restaurants, and my story to myself was if I made one person who worked at the fast food restaurant just a little bit happier that day, if my software was able to make their life a little easier, maybe they would smile more and maybe that would help somebody else's day, right? I needed to feel like I was making the world a better place. While I was in my career, I ended up in education, and that's where I spent a lot of my time. I spent a lot of time building software for students and teachers and honestly making their lives fundamentally better. But that alignment has kind of always been there. And it informed how I became a technology leader. When I hired, when I selected people, when I trained, when I managed, I did a lot to develop people to their highest potential. And after enough kind of cycles of boom bust, I kind of got the realization that I really love working with people and making the world a better place, but I don't really love the technology. I mean, it's fun, but it's not really where my heart was. It was just a vehicle for me to get where I was going. And in the aftermath of the layoffs and all the things that were happening, I realized I could just do pure people work. So I made that choice and carried all the lessons I learned, developed more lessons, and became a coach just to focus on where my heart is, which is with compassionate relationships with people to change the world.
Sounds wonderful. You are. I know that you're very caring and very caring, very kind person. Uh, and you are also a cancer survivor, right?
Yeah.
Can you share a bit more? How did it shape your approach in your coaching?
Sure. Yeah. So I survived childhood cancer. So I was very, very young, and my earliest memories are actually in the hospital. Um, and it was a lot to go through as a child. But as I grew, I grew up believing and acting normal. I lived what I thought was a relatively normal life. So I got to experience sort of effectively near death. I was diagnosed terminal, and the doctors weren't sure I was going to make it. Um, and then I got to live a fully normal life, go to high school, go to college, right? Have a wonderful family, and what that's really taught me is one, no one knows what you've been through. Um, so I don't know what my clients have been through, and they don't have to tell me, and I will offer them uh, the fullest compassion that I can. Two, it's taught me how easy it is to be hard on yourself, even if you've gone through a lot. And I can really bring a lot of that into my coaching to help people have compassion for themselves, even if they didn't go through the same level of suffering that somebody else went through. Um, but it also taught me that not all of our systems that we have around us that keep ourselves safe, keep us protected, they're faulty. Um, and all the systems we use to keep ourselves um, sort of knowing what to do, they break down at the edges. The doctors didn't know what to do. My parents didn't know what to do, and I still made it. So when I come into my coaching, I don't try to bring people a set of rules that we know work. I acknowledge that things don't always work and that systems break down and that uh, best intentions don't get you where you need to go all the time and that that's okay. And it's still possible to make it through. And it's just a lot of where my compassion comes from for others because when you suffer a lot, you tend to learn how important kindness really is.
Yeah. So true. And what you said also, it's so hard to be kind to yourself. So hard to be, to forgive yourself for things. And uh, there are many challenges, right? Which there is the systems around us are failing, as you said as well. When a person is in a burnout, is in a real life challenge, and decides to take a career break, sabbatical gap year, they face a lot of challenges, right? What challenges do you believe these people are facing?
Yeah, I think, many people are going to have fear.
Hmm.
I think that's the biggest one that comes from the self. And that fear is going to be very pragmatic a lot of times. What will it cost? Um, how will I provide for myself? How will I provide for my family? Um, and then there's future fear of will I be able to get back into the workforce? Will people respect my gap year and or whatever length of break? Um, but then there's also the fear of um, will people let me? Will it be accepted? Will I be socially rejected for doing something like this? Um, and those are the sort of inner resistances. And then there's external resistances that come socially because some people may tell you, please don't do that. Your spouse, your family, your work colleagues, your boss, right? People you have relationships may um, not try to stop you so much, but judge you and make you feel things that cause you resistance. And when I work with people thinking through a lot of this stuff, the first thing to do is to really focus on what it is that you want, what it is that you need, understanding that and really articulating it. And then when you sense the fear, and you can sense that fear, let it out a little bit, and then look directly at it and lean into that fear. What's the absolute worst that could happen? And it's not about trying to play probabilities or trying to say, oh, that'll never happen. But in the worst case scenario, are you still willing to pursue what it is that you desire? So if the worst thing that could happen is you're out of work for another, year and a half, 2 years, it's harder to get a job, or you take a reduced salary the next time you come back, or whatever thing that you're most afraid of, is that worth the thing that you desire? Um, and if it's not, we examine what more do you desire, and is this the right move, or is it not the right move? Um, but a lot of times, what we also have to do is we have to get practical, and we have to talk about action steps you can do to keep yourself safe. So, I know for myself, taking time off and taking gap for myself, I actually needed the support of my partner, and she reminded me that in the absolute worst case scenario, we really could tap into our retirement accounts. Yeah, there'd be financial penalties, but in the worst case, if everything went wrong,
Yeah.
we still have a little bit of a cash cushion that'll carry us forward and it'll be okay. So you can be very pragmatic about designing your safety nets to make sure it all works out. But the fear is the biggest one. And then the social resistance of other people telling you not to do it, that takes some work too. Because sometimes you have to realize who's really helping you and who's not.
And you also said that what is right and what is not right, right? Who tells you that is it? Is it only external or is it internal? There are many things to discover during this the break, right? Which hopefully many people decide to take early enough in their career, in their lives. So what are the self-discoveries you think people can make during the gap year?
Yeah, the biggest, I think, self-discovery is to learn to trust the excitement and the desire that you have. Um, some people I've worked with, when I poll some people sometimes and I ask, do you think desire is a good word or a bad word? Or on a scale of good to bad, 1 to 5, where do you place desire? And there are a lot of people that feel desire is not good, right? They want to eliminate desire. They think desire is negative. And when you have the time and space to really pursue your desires, you come to realize that that's actually where all your success comes from. When you're passionate about something, when you desire something, when you're excited about something, and you can marshal more energy than you've ever marshaled before to come to bear, you can really make incredible moves. And when you are living in a system and you're working in a system that doesn't align with your desires, you tend to downplay the importance of desire and the importance of excitement and focus on correctness, right? To your point about what's right, right? You focus on correctness as the path to success. And that self-discovery that can happen when there's no more structure, and there's no more rules that are imposed upon you, is that you can be way more successful when you trust what your desire is trying to pull you towards.
And how can we differentiate between the desire and what is correct from the external world? It's tricky,
Sure.
that everybody says that it's good to be rich. I want to be rich, and
Uh-huh.
is
That's
it?
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Everybody says that. Well, I mean that's a good example is rich money when I coach people through their relationship with money, right? Money is only useful. I saw a great TikTok on this recently, right? Money has no value until it's in the hand of somebody who has value, right? So when I hold money and I'm just holding on to it, it's not useful. But when I'm giving it to somebody else for a reason, that's when it has value. So we want to be rich, but why? Mostly because we want freedom. Why do we want freedom? Because we want freedom to pursue
Mhm.
what we desire. Now we're back to, well, what is it that you desire and why do you desire those things? And at a certain point you get to because it feels good, because it energizes me, because it drives my existence. This is what I want, right? So for me, helping people, supporting people, and I do this all the time. I'll go out, I'll meet a whole bunch of people, and somebody will be like, man, I'm having a really rough time with X, Y, or Z. And I just want to help. That drives me. It keeps me up. It keeps me waking up well in the morning. So when we separate out sort of what society imposes on us, we can do it by looking at the why behind your initial desire. So if it's money, it's why do you want money? If it's fame, well, why do you want fame? Right?
Mhm.
If some people want fame because they want to be safe. Some people want fame because they want to change the world. And, knowing that what you want is to change the world, or knowing what you want is safety and the ability to build a safe family, these are really different things. And when you're on a treadmill, when you're in a system, it's very difficult to separate those things out. And when you're on a gap, you're on sabbatical, and you have to trust what's going on inside as your guide, really leads you to where you're trying to go.
Yeah. It's very powerful what you say, indeed, and it's great that we have coaches like you on the growthyears.com platform. And as you know, we also help our clients, like you said, to break the news to their family, because sometimes family and friends are not very supportive and roll their eyes and think that what is he or she doing?
Right.
And we also help, of course, to pitch it to the boss. If you want to take a career break. What do you feel like the biggest misconceptions people have about the gap year or sabbatical?
I guess that taking a break is first and foremost a like an abdication of responsibility. I think that's a big misconception. Um, and that once you're done with the break, you're just going to come back and it's going to be normal and you're going to go do the exact same thing, right? That you're not going to change. I think those are the two biggest misconceptions that it's sort of that American concept of laziness, and that you're not going to change it. You're going to come back from a very long vacation, and maybe you'll have painted a picture, but you're going to come back to the same role doing the exact same thing in the exact same way. And what really happens is that the hardest work that we can really get to do, which is really examining our priorities, gets done on these gap years. And that reprioritization changes, even if we end up back in the exact same role in the exact same seat, it changes the way we prioritize. It changes the way we understand our role and what we contribute and what's important about what we contribute. And what that means is that we start saying no to more things, start saying yes to different things, and we drive for change so that the role is more aligned with what we really want. And that will often result in change in the role, change in the office, and it can even result in conflict if you're in a place that doesn't share your values, right? This is why it works so well in academia. You're in academia, you have sort of known shared values, right? Discovery, learning, knowledge. But what you might be working on before the sabbatical and after the sabbatical can change incredibly, because what you were working on before the sabbatical is based on a long line of a lot of labor and a lot of stress. And then that break frees the mind to really pursue lateral thinking, reprioritization. And when you come back, you can have a completely different research focus suddenly, but you're still aligned with the values of the institution. In a corporate environment, there's that risk that you come back with very different priorities. You really want to make an impact, and the organization and your values are now exposed to be different. But that is often the root cause of why you were stuck in the first place.
El, you work with a lot of executives, right? So what do you think the biggest challenge for those people to find, in finding a balance between their personal development, personal growth, maybe spiritual growth, and their professional development? Because I sometimes feel like, those people in particular very often focus on their professional growth predominantly, and that's what leads a lot to burnout, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of avoidance one way or the other, whether it's avoidance in the personal or whether it's avoidance in the personal or professional. So what I mean by avoidance is sometimes we have conflict at home, and the way we avoid that is we become workaholics and we work and work and work and work. And by using work as our place to avoid, we end up not actually doing the best job we can as an executive. So when we take a gap, sometimes people who are using work to avoid conflict at home try to find other ways of avoiding conflict at home. um, and sometimes that's, oh, I've got to take classes. I want to get an MBA or an executive MBA or anything and they maintain the same dynamic. On the flip side, it could be that all I want to do is spend time with myself and my family, and I don't want to think about work at all. And that can lead to, avoiding the work in such a way that it's actually very difficult to come back. So the balance really tends to be about finding what you're avoiding and giving yourself structured time, whether that's, every morning or however you want to structure it, but it's really committing to leaning into what you're avoiding, leaning into the fear and leaning to the avoidance. So it's a sort of universal prescription for whatever is going on. The executive that needs to find balance needs to look at where they've got the greatest fear or the greatest avoidance behavior and commit energy and focus to addressing whatever it is they're avoiding and why, and by whatever means necessary to do it while they do everything else. So if I'm avoiding work, so I'm vacationing, I'm traveling, I'm at the beach, I need to make sure that I've made a personal commitment and a time commitment and a focus and attention commitment. Why am I avoiding work and what am I doing? And that actually helps to restart the balance, because it's the avoidance dynamic that causes the imbalance in the first place.
Yeah. And what are the critical components for those executives during the gap year to make it success? and to be able to come back if they eventually decide to come back to the high level positions they used to have.
Sure. So a lot of my clients, I work with them to help them build a personal advisory board. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that having a group of people that you trust um, is really important. And that doesn't mean necessarily people that you're vacationing with or people that you're studying with, but people that as you're going through the process of self-discovery and exploration, that you can share something that happened or something that you thought of, and you can get feedback. It's why I think growthyears.com is incredible with the coaching bench, because having a coach, a dedicated coach who's trained and who's, experienced in doing this can be an incredible sounding board and mirror to provide the support. And it can really accelerate and deepen the growth that you have during a sabbatical. So I think having, trusted advisors that you can bounce ideas off of and share what you're going through and get it reflected back at you is really important. But also being clear about why you're doing this and how important it is for you, and sharing that with the people around you so that they all know how important it is to you. If your boss, your executive peers, your board, your spouse, your partners, your kids, if they don't know how important this is to you,
Yeah.
you're not doing the necessary groundwork to really lay the foundation for you to have a great sabbatical or a great gap year or growth year. If they know and understand how important this is for you, even if they're participating or they're not participating, they can help you when you start to slip, and they can also make sure that they're governing their own behavior and respecting your boundaries. So I think that part of it is trusting everyone around you to believe that this is important and really telling them.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of it is really making sure you have a good team of people, and it doesn't have to be a formal team, but a group of people or even one great coach that
Yeah.
is there to guide you.
So the coach from the growthyears.com will be with you during the whole experience, right? But what you suggest that also people from your life, you're not just running away from your life, right? You suggest that you keep in touch and you share with your former colleagues, your boss, with your family, your friends. You keep in touch and you share what you're experiencing because it's sort of an anchor for you during your transformation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think people that you trust primarily, and even for the people that you don't trust, and this is where a good coach can help out. For the people that you have conflict with or that you have trust issues with, but have a important role to play. So say a boss or a peer, having a way that you will engage even those people who are critical to your success when you return, um, is at least for high level executives, a really important thing to make sure you have a plan for how you're going to share, how you're going to use this time away to actually build relationships even when you're not there, and maintain relationships even when you're not there. Can be incredibly powerful for somebody in a position of power.
And nowadays coaches are very important and mentors are very important. I truly believe in that. But there are so many coaches and mentors now. It's very difficult to find really. And for our viewers, of course, we have picked the coaches very carefully for our platform. We have interviewed, we had trainings. Um, but your profile is special in terms of your executive coach because you have been executive yourself, right? So
Mhm.
how do you
Mhm.
think your executive background is helping you talking to our clients who are also very often at a high level in their careers?
So I will say this. I think that the need for your coach to have been where you've been is overblown. Um, but I think that it comes from an important place, which is that what you need from your coach is actually compassion. And one of the easiest ways to get compassion is for someone to have already been through what you've been through. But it's that compassion that I think is really what makes the relationship fruitful. There are a lot of coaches who have been through what you've been through, and instead of having compassion for you, can judge you for what you're doing because you're not doing it the way they did. So even though they have similar experiences, there's some barrier in the relationship that prevents compassion, and that lack of compassion is what makes that relationship not work. So the experience is really valuable, but primarily for the purpose of creating empathy and compassion. So I would say that my experience as an executive um, was a process of incorporating and integrating the compassion that I felt, the deep compassion that I felt for humanity, into a corporate environment, and the ability to stay human and stay compassionate and stay kind, despite everything that was going on around me and all the pressures of business. Um, and I can bring that to a lot of executives who also feel that need to reclaim their humanity, but can't figure out necessarily how to navigate in the corporate world where that's not always rewarded. But a lot of that really comes back down to my cancer study, my cancer work, and my personal experience with it, and that ability to really connect with people who are facing down pain and facing down suffering, and to hold space for them. And because I've been there, a lot of executives will trust me enough to be vulnerable because they don't have to have the same mask that they do with people who haven't been there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of vulnerability available, but it's that compassion piece that I think a lot of relationships fail on, and where my relationships tend to succeed.
Yeah, it's very important indeed. Those bosses which you have who are compassionate, you remember them forever, and you want to work with them, and you want to go extra mile. You want to jump on the difficult tasks. It's if somebody doesn't know it or underestimate it, don't, because it's really 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 important and very powerful. Maybe last question, Al, for our viewers who are still hesitant whether to jump on the gap year experience, growth year experience, or sabbatical, career break, whatever you call it. What would be your advice for those people?
For those who are hesitant, my advice would be to really lean into the hesitation, to name it, to not avoid it at all, to look at the reasons why not. Um, and then to acknowledge that anything worth doing will always have risk associated with it. Whether it's entrepreneurship or whether it's taking a leadership role, right? We often do things that are actually quite difficult and quite scary. But we do them and we get over the fear, and then we forget that the fear was there in the first place because the thing that we want was worth that kind of risk. And most of the time, our fears are overblown, right? We're worried that we take a leadership position and it's too big for us, and then we're there for 8 years, right? But we forget after those 8 years that we had that fear in the beginning and we overcame it because taking on the role was worth the risk of finding out that you weren't good enough for it. And then it turns out you're good enough for it. So the same thing is going to be true with taking a career break. There's a lot of reasons why not. So name them and just dissolve them of all their power and just look at them and be like, so here are the reasons not to. Is it worth it to realign your priorities with your actual values, to finally get excited again about getting up every day, to really find what moves you, and then to be able to come back from that and bring that every single day to your work? Is that worth the risks and the fears? If you avoid looking at those risks and fears, you never get the chance to do that calculus. So lean into the fear. It's the work you have to do.
And if I may, I also want to say then that, I hope you will agree with me that you are going to be there for our clients who decide to embark on the growth year.
Right.
Thank you very much, Al, for being with us today, for providing us this valuable information about your background, about your approach. For those viewers who are interested to work with Al, you can find more information about him on thegrowthyears.com, and please reach out to us if you want Al to be your coach. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.